Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. And yes, I've got some good news for you. Premier League football, we've only got one more game to suffer ahead of what Spurs could be European champions. I know what you're thinking. What is going on in this crazy, crazy season? I wish I could try and have an explanation for you, but three gentlemen that might do on this show. I'm joined by broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams, who can't wait for the season to come to an end. Equal to him, I've got to say, who also hosts a Spurs podcast, I've got to say, the wonderful presenter Marcus Buckland, I think equally is as disillusioned as us as to what the season has brought, but it could bring a European trophy. And Marlon from the Spurs Kings, who hasn't really changed the expression, dare I say, Miles, from match day one of you. I mean, it's been the same kind of expression from match day one. And here we all are gathered for Spurs' what was penultimate game of the Premier League season, in which for Tottenham, they suffered their 21st defeat of the Premier League season and 25 in all competitions. It means for Tottenham, they are 25 points worse off than this stage last season. And historically, three clubs were relegated after scoring or achieving more points than Tottenham at this stage. West Ham back in the 02-03 season with 42 points. Sunderland in 96-97 with 40 points. And Bolton with 97-98 season achieving 40 points. The match facts and the stats to take away from that Villa game, which I don't know how many out there look, I think going into this one, I think we all kind of thought it was going to be a defeat. Maybe some were surprised by how long it took Villa to break us down. Ended Villa 2, Tottenham 0. Villa 18 shots to Spurs' 3. Villa 7 shots on target to Spurs' 1. 40 touches in Spurs' box to Tottenham's 8 in Villa's. Interceptions, Tottenham the busier of the two sides, 13-3. Recoveries, Villa up on that stat, 47-42. Clearance-wise, Tottenham the busier of the two sides, 33-9. Villa dominating the corner count, 9-1. Villa also dominating possession, 69% to 31%. And there'll be no surprise that with XG, Villa, busier of the two sides, 1.77 to 0.37. Marcus, I'm actually going to open the show with you because I was kind of trying to say on there to G us up that wasn't as bad as what I think many were actually predicting. I mean, I think first half we were actually quite organised. There seemed to be an element of that sounds bad after seeing that we've had here, saying this. Some kind of structure to our play, but kind of second half with the changes that we made, there was a real lack of discipline, tiredness, fatigue in the legs of the players. And really, as we saw, Villa took advantage of that and comprehensively went on to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's come as absolutely no surprise to any of us, Ricky, has it? I tell you what, the evening began with a massive surprise for me because I got my team lineup on flash scores and I could not believe the starting 11. I mean, it was effectively the team I expect to start against Manchester United in Bilbao on Wednesday. And I thought, oh my God, even by his own maniacal standards, Ange has lost the plot. He's playing Van der Ven, he's playing Romero, he's playing the whole lot of them. Then I realised there'd been a little bit of an error. So I calmed down to a degree, saw the 11. And listen, whenever Spurs play, of course, I want them to win. I'll be absolutely honest with you tonight, Ricky. I did not expect them to win. I did not expect them to score. And actually, kind of hoped Aston Villa would win to dent Chelsea's chances of qualifying for the Champions League. It was a total irrelevance, like so many league games have been this season. Just get it out of the way. I pray that tomorrow morning we don't hear that somebody who has been declared fit tonight, as seems to be the case in Spurs, oh, he's all right, he'll be all right, and then tomorrow we find out he's had an operation. So I hope that hasn't happened, that everybody who is going to play a big part on Wednesday is fit and ready to go. And then let's just get the Brighton game out of the way and forget this truly horrific season. You mentioned the stats, and my Newcastle mate Mike the other day reminded me that when Newcastle went down in the 08-09 season, they only lost 18 games. When they went down in the 15-16 season, they only lost 19 games. We've now lost 21. It'll probably be 22 once we've played Brighton, because either we'll have won the Europa League and everyone will be partying, or we'll have lost and there'll be even more doom and gloom before Ange says goodbye. So that table, that monstrous table, Ricky, thank goodness you won't have to show it too many more times.
Thank God. Thank you. Marcus, thank you so much for kicking us off. Russ, I'm going to come over to you. I know, look, for you, every defeat has been painful this season. And I know you are regretting me bringing you back for more. I'm pleased to say, Russ, you've got 3 months of annual leave coming up after Brighton, and that smile is getting bigger and bigger. Although I can't promise you what happens next season. You have to remember that. Look, 38 points on the board after 37 games. Yeah. Lose to Brighton, it will be double the losses than the wins, but it is now all on to Wednesday.
Yes.
Any real surprises, Russ, in terms of that performance, that result, given Ange's 11 that he put out there?
Well, on a Eurovision weekend, Ricky, the Hertfordshire jury says Tottenham Hotspur 0 points, Aston Villa 3 points. And, joking aside, Aston Villa, at the moment, are everything that I think we would like to be. Unai Emery, a very difficult time down the road at you-know-where, picked himself up, went into Aston Villa, had a dream, bought well, trained well, got the players believing, and look where they are now. He's taken them to new heights, and we've got a manager who's taken us to new lows. And as Marcus says, obviously after the Europa League, I think it is definitely going to be over for him, purely and simply on the Premier League alone, and the Cubs, which weren't great. It saddens me to have to say that, but this is a competitive sport, everyone, and we haven't competed really. And you're right, Rick, and what everyone is saying. It's down to Wednesday. I thought the first 15 minutes we looked pretty dangerous. It was good to see Sonny with some speed in his legs. The move with the effort for Wilson Odobert, I thought was excellent. Could easily have been a goal. The mid-block worked for about 50 minutes. Villa worked us out, I felt. And as somebody put rather eloquently on X, which made me smile, Tottenham's attack, where possession goes to die. And it sums it up, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the most damning, I think, points that there's no way you can get away from this season. I mean, look, Miles, come over to you. You've suffered like the rest of us on here this season. Look, we all know that really we're 90 minutes away on Wednesday where Ange can have an unbelievable swing where he's either a European Cup winning manager or he's finishing 17th with 20-plus Premier League defeats. I mean, football is absolutely crazy. Can you, try and compartmentalize what we are going through this season and how big Wednesday is for everybody, as we know, at the football club? Because I think there's been this kind of general feeling about this Villa game where, look, I think many of actually saying this in the live show here in live chat, that there shouldn't be a case where we just dismiss these games because games do build momentum. But I know there's a lot of people going into this game where they did feel, given our luck when it comes to player availability, there was a general feeling that Ange should rest a lot, if not all, of the first 11 that would probably feature in the Europa League final on Wednesday.
Yeah, look, hindsight's a wonderful thing. And if he'd have played the first team tonight and got injuries, we'd have all been moaning. He's gone and played the second team, and that's exactly what he's done. Look, we kind of go into these games now expecting to be after the performance last weekend and going into this and going against a Villa side that, as Russ said, are everything we are trying to be. We were never going to win this game today. I thought we actually defended quite well in the first half. But as Russ said again, as soon as it went up top, you can clearly see, even if we were to change tactics as we did tonight, we need to clearly look at that front three in the summer. Even when Solanke and Richarlison came on, it is just, there's something just not right up there. But the positive to take out tonight is that us, Crystal Palace and Swansea are now equal to 21, where we haven't been relegated. So unless we lose against Brighton, we at least we're going to hold the record with somebody. But no, look, it is what it is. We're all looking forward to Wednesday. I think Manchester United are losing right now. So you know, both teams are going into it on the worst form ever. And it's just kind of going, one team on Thursday is going to be saying it is the worst season of their life, and one team's going to be going, well, we got out of jail this year. It's just, yeah, I think a lot of us can't wait for this season to end. It could end on a high, it could end on a complete low. But I tell you one thing now, and I think a lot of people can agree with this: Ange will not be the manager here next season. Just won't be. There's too many defeats in the league, and it won't change. And I tell you the one thing that I won't mind seeing, and especially next year, I'm sick and tired of seeing Daniel Levy's face on TV. I see him more than the players now. Every single moment. Who's chairman in the league gets shown more than Daniel Levy on TV? It's like 3 or 4 times a game now. It's like, come on. It's like, come on now. I'm really getting sick and tired of his face. And it's not just this game. It's every single game. And it's been going on for the last probably years. And this is the biggest problem, what that's going on with the club, when the chairman is being shown more than managers, players and whatnot on the screen. And something needs to stop. Something needs to be changed. But here we are.
I'll come back to it in a second. I mean, Marcus, when we look ahead to Wednesday's game and the magnitude of what it is for Tottenham and how big it is, you know, does it feel like it could be a real sliding doors moment for the football club? If you win it, you have the opportunity with a new manager to maybe, you know, with some decent amount of funds behind him, try and, you know, I say rebuild the squad, but I mean, I don't think the squad is in such a terrible condition where it needs an overhaul again of 10, 11 players. I think there's some good players there to work with. I just think, in my opinion, it needs a progressive coach. Is that how you see things, or how do you weigh up the magnitude of Wednesday's game for this football club?
Yeah, well, first of all, I totally endorse what the other guys have said with regards to the managerial situation. I'm sorry, you know, Ange has got great rhetoric, and if he wins a European trophy on Wednesday night, he will be put down and on the same sort of levels as Keith Birkinshaw, Bill Nicholson, and the others in that regard. But let us not get carried away by emotion. I mean, Spurs' run in the Europa League has not been that glorious. We've got a bit lucky. Of course, you've got to beat the teams. It's not straightforward. Otherwise, as Ange himself said, everybody would win a European trophy. But being absolutely honest, we have seen off a reasonably good Bundesliga team in Eintracht Frankfurt, thanks to a penalty away from home. We've come through against a very useful Norwegian side who you would always want to play in the semi-finals. And of course, no Champions League team came down to the Europa League, so it's been a little more straightforward. And just got lucky. Well done. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And if he wins a trophy, he'll be remembered fondly for that. But there is no way he should be allowed to stay on at the club. Don't make the mistake that Manchester United did last year when they played really well in the FA Cup final and beat Manchester City and decided to keep Erik ten Hag. Of course, just a few months later, they realised they'd got that wrong. He has to go. A new manager has to come in. But Wednesday night is absolutely critical for 2 reasons. First of all, as Spurs fans, we all yearn for silverware. We have not seen enough of it. We all know that. We've got to go back to 2008 for the last League Cup success. We've got to go back to 1984, 41 years ago, for our last European success. So getting that silverware is massive. It's a feel-good factor. But of course, added to that is the fact that we will go into the Champions League. And I don't care if Arsene Wenger and everybody else says it's not fair. Those are the rules, guys. You can't change the rules just because it's Spurs and Manchester United. So it's critical that we get the silverware to feel good, to have a better season technically than Arsenal and Chelsea and everybody else. But also we'll have that opportunity to bring in some big players in the summer with an innovative coach, somebody like an Oliver Glasner. And this can be a total and utter transformation. It's the biggest night in the club's history for decades. Okay, maybe not decades. I mean, 2019, if we won the Champions League, that would be massive as well. But it's right up there with that because of the Champions League option.
Yeah, I mean, Russ, coming over to you. Look, as we mentioned earlier, 25 defeats in all comps, joint most in a season in our history. 21 league defeats, most in a 38-match season in our history. Are you confident, Russ, even if Ange Postecoglou does pull off winning the Europa League, which would obviously, of course, mean for Tottenham it's their first European trophy in over 40 years. It puts him in a category of managers that haven't done it on a regular basis. Let's be honest about it. It puts him under the likes of Keith Birkinshaw as well in that group. And some of the people that are held in such high regard at Tottenham, you still feel in your mind that there's no way he would continue as the Spurs head coach.
No, I can't see any footballing reason why he should stay. And I know we've got a light squad, as it's called in the media. That means a squad of players that aren't actually good enough. They're not light in number. Everyone has the same number. I honestly think that, and we've talked about this before, fellas, if these players were coached correctly, I think we'd see them perform a lot better. That's what we're missing. Look at the defensive errors again tonight, and it's every game, which is why we've lost so many. And we've conceded 61 goals in the Premier League this season. We've scored about 53, I think. But these players, some of them do need to go, as we've talked about. If we get in the Champions League, I see that the club were making a noise that, we're going to throw some money at it. Well, we've heard that before, but they have to. But I really cannot see how, even if we win on Wednesday, and like everybody else, I want us to, I cannot see how Ange can go into another Premier League season and be trusted with the Champions League and the ambitions of this club that's got to pick itself up off the canvas, because we're right on the canvas now. And I've got concerns about Wednesday as well, that our back four won't have played together for 2 weeks. Manchester United have put out pretty much the team, 90% of it is going to start on Wednesday tonight. And I understand cotton wool and all this kind of stuff. But for the manager to say, and did I get that right, Rick, that he said, I'll forget the league, it's all about Wednesday. Well, if he did say that, and I know we're going to hear from him in a minute, all the people who've paid so much money to go and watch Spurs at home and away in the Premier League and been so disappointed and disgusted by what they've seen and the amount of defeats, what an insult to them that is. We know Wednesday's important, but you can't just poo-poo a Premier League season that has been an utter disaster. And save for one of those three teams not being a bit better, it could have been us that was going down. This is a close-run thing.
I just wonder, Marlon, on the points, I know some have picked up on this, that when Ange Postecoglou has had available to him Mickey van der Ven, Christian Romero, Destiny Udogie, Pedro Porro as a back four, I think when you look at the stats overall, Spurs have lost less than 15% of the games. I think that's one of the stats that has been pulled out. I mean, but obviously we know, with the way football works and, in general, the Premier League and adaptability and flexibility, you don't always have that opportunity to always be able to field a prominent first choice back four, back five every game if you include Vicario in that. Is that the biggest problem, do you feel, even moving forward, if we do win on Wednesday?
Yeah, no, look, I looked into, funny enough, I looked into those games that everyone's talking about how many games them guys have actually played together. If you actually look at some of the teams they played against, you kind of look at it and go, actually, we should be beating those teams. There's not any, I don't think there's any top sides in there that they've actually played as a five against. So there's not really been some massive tests. So obviously it's going to look good on paper when they are out there and they're playing the likes of, just for talking purposes, Southampton and the Crystal Palaces at home and things like that, when they can get, or the Nottingham Forest when they were crap last year, some of those. But when they've actually been tested, they've lost. So for me, it's kind of, look, I'm looking forward to Wednesday, but they are going to be playing against the Manchester United side that know how to play finals. And everyone wrote them off last year against Manchester City. Everybody wrote them off. And for them not to have played that many games together, it's going to be in those later stages of the game, say it's still 0-0, and Manchester United are pressing, that we might start to see some frailties in that defence. And yes, they played well against Frankfurt away, Bodo Glimt, to kind of, they've just started their season. And I know they beat Lazio and all that, but that was towards the end of last year where they were coming towards the end of their season. So it's kind of like, you got to look at it like this. Ange just got a massive job on Wednesday, a real big job, because he hasn't played most of the team for the last how many weeks. And I can see, look, you can take the Kulusevski injured. Every time we put players out there, they do get injured. So for him on Wednesday to keep them fresh and fit, because if I remember when we played the Champions League final, and I think it was like 2.5 weeks before we even played, and everyone said it was such a slow start and everything like that. And we might have the exact same problem when we go and play in Bilbao. Look, it's Spain, it's going to be hot, and some of these players are not turned out for 2.5 weeks. It's going to be a really interesting scenario, and we will find out whether it's been a good thing that they haven't been playing or whether it's a bad thing. But to be honest, when most of them have played, like Porro and Udogi, we still haven't played well in the Premier League anyway. So the biggest key to all this is going to be Van der Ven, because Van der Ven is so key to Ange's system that whenever he plays it and the other lot play together, that's when it kind of fits all together. So it's going to be, look, I don't know if what's going to happen Wednesday. Am I confident? But mate, look, if out of every team I wanted at the knockout stages in that final, if you'd asked me, I'd have probably wanted Manchester United at the time, because you looked at the other teams and went, oh, they could do us here, they could do us here. Especially Bilbao. If it was Bilbao, I just wouldn't be having a hope in hell. But the way Man United's season has gone, they're probably the most likely that I'd want. But at the same time, I'm looking at going, Manchester United's mentality compared to ours is completely different. It's a different animal. And that's my only worry. But at the same time, I'm quite confident if the boys go out and play as they have done. And I think the key for me is going to be Basuma and Bentancur. I think they're going to be so key. And I'm glad that he kind of wrapped them two up in cotton wool tonight as well, because we're not going to talk about Archie Gray. I said I wouldn't come on and talk about Archie Gray. But those two are going to be so key, because I think Basuma's performances in the Europa League, especially in the last few weeks, are part of the reason why we've played so well. And actually, if we can get that Basuma playing at his top level, as we have seen, then I think that's where the game could be won and lost in that middle with him and Bentancur.
Yep. I said I don't want to alarm you guys because Ange has just given an injury update. We're going to bring him into focus shortly. You know what Ange says, it's just a knock. You haven't got anything to worry about, right? Obviously, for those that are aware, Pat Matassar left the field early into the second half. Ange just said Pape felt something in his back. We don't think it's anything significant, having spoken to him, but we'll see. So on the basis of Ange's, I was about to say, that could be a career ender on the basis of Ange's recent prognosis and feedback on certain players. Just to confirm, Ange has confirmed Pat has felt something in his back. We don't think it's anything significant, having spoken to him, but we will see. Ange also was commenting on having Heung-Min Son back in the Tottenham starting 11. He said it's important, especially since we have lost the likes of James Maddison, who is one of the leaders, Decky and Lucas in the last 3 weeks. Now getting Sonny back into the team gives at least another experienced player. I think the last 2 or 3 fixtures, our average age has been 3 or 4 years younger than the opposition. You can see that at times like this, just having another experienced player available is great for the team. Marcus, from what you've seen so far of Son's return in a Spurs shirt, do you think he will start in that Europa League final on Wednesday?
I hope he doesn't. I hope that we have learned a lesson from Madrid 2019 and I recall so very clearly the moment the starting 11 for the game against Liverpool was announced and Harry Kane was in that team. And of course, he'd had all the injury problems. There'd been a long gap between the end of the season and the Champions League final. He was not fit and he did not produce. Sonny is in a similar situation here. And I would much rather have him as a lurking presence coming off the bench. There's every chance the game's going to go to extra time, quite possibly to penalties as well. That's when you need Sonny. So I hope he doesn't start. It's great. I totally agree that to have him back with the experience, still with that turn of pace that he's blessed by, is a massive plus. But don't start the game with him. Let him be that presence. Let him be the man who comes on and wins the match for Tottenham. And just to very quickly go back over a couple of the other points that the boys have been discussing, I think Russ made a really relevant one with regards to the squad. Okay, it's a light squad. There are plenty of good players in there. And so many of them, I think, have gone backwards, and that ultimately has to come down to the manager. I think they've gone backwards since those heady days of the first 10 games of last season. And I mentioned Sarr. Okay, now he's got something in his back. Oh, my goodness me. Are we going to have a single fit midfielder come Wednesday night? Not the way things are going. Jed Spence was outstanding when he finally got his chance. I don't know what's happened to his form. Perversely, actually, it's helped Udogie, Destiny Udogie, who's come back in and shown, no, Jed, you're not having my place on the left side of the defence just yet. But Spence has not developed over the past 3 or 4 months. Archie Gray, I know we don't talk too much about the poor guy, but he's been played in all sorts of different positions. I watched him against Crystal Palace last weekend. His passing was awful. I think he was forgetting where the hell he was playing. I'm not surprised. Was he right back? Was he in the centre of defence? Was he being given an opportunity in midfield? He has not been treated well. And Odobert, I think there's a lot of ability there, but we haven't seen too much of it yet. That comes down to the manager. But where I will defend Ange tonight, guys, is the team selection. Okay, you shouldn't diss league games, generally speaking, but this is a unique situation. And had he played his full 11 tonight and somebody of significance had got injured, he would have come in for unmerciless stick, and he would have deserved that. He was in an impossible position in this regard, so I do not blame him at all for effectively throwing this match. We'd like the A choice 11 to have played together more recently than the 2-week gap it will have been come Wednesday night against Manchester United. But you just cannot risk having any more of your top players injured at this stage in the build-up to a European final.
Yeah, I mean, Russ, where do you stand for you on Son and the final ahead of Wednesday? I mean, did you see any hope there? I mean, there was a couple of moments in that game where you thought you saw a little bit of vintage Sonny. He bent one over the bar. There were times where there was a threatening of Sonny to look like his old self. But I think, look, no disrespect to Sonny, he's not the same Son of 2 or 3 years ago. Russ, have you seen enough in your opinion that you could see him starting the team, given the fact Decky's out injured and now?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I know obviously Sarr's the one we have to wait and see, but where do you see Son's situation ahead of Wednesday?
I think he's been very disappointing generally this season. But what I saw tonight was a spring in his legs again, and there was that speed there. He's obviously been working very hard, and I think needs must really. And he is one of those exceptional players that could just come up with a bit of magic. I mean, the first half against Aston Villa tonight, he was in a great position. The old Son would have shot, but he passed it and it came to nothing. But I think a lot of our brethren think that he's finished and he shouldn't really play for us anymore. He could have a last hurrah in this game, and he has been a brilliant servant to the football club. But I get the comparisons of people saying, look, he hasn't been playing, and a bit like Harry Kane in the 2019 Champions League final. But we saw him run tonight with speed, as fast as I've seen him actually in the last few months. And I think we're going to need that. But he's not got long left at the club. So you never know. If he does start, and I think Ange will start him, he might have a significant part to play, albeit only for a small one half of the game. But I think Ange will start him. And I think if I was a manager, I probably would as well.
Marlon, do you agree? Would you start Heung-Min Son on the basis of what you've seen over the past couple of games to go on or go off?
I probably wouldn't start him, but I can see Russ's point. The only thing that makes me think he is going to start now is Sarr being injured. Because if you look at the whole 11 that played tonight, I think all of them were planned to be on the bench on Wednesday. It was only going to be Sarr who was going to come into that, because Sarr's the only probably person that's fit enough to come in after Basuma and Bentancur into that midfield. We've really got no one else unless there is going to be a surprise with Bergvall. But you could clearly see that Richarlison's going to start on the left on Wednesday with Solanke up top with Johnson on the right, and that's why we saw that team tonight. However, with Sarr now being injured, does that then move Son up onto the left, and does that move Richarlison? And they play 2 up top, possibly, because we've just got no one else there at the moment, and maybe we'll go 4-4-2. It may try something different like that and spring a surprise on Manchester United. But it just depends on who else we've got available, because if we're getting more and more injuries over the next few days, then I think Sonny will start. And he did look kind of sharp tonight, and there was parts of it where I think there was a ball he could have laid across the box to Odobert, and not Odobert, it might have been Odobert actually, and he just didn't play it. It was just some of that was a bit rusty in that sense. But if I'm looking at it as I'm going on tonight's starting lineup, I don't expect Son to start on Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Ange has also been speaking about Odobert having his opportunity to play as, I think, at parts in that game, a 10, in giving his thoughts on overall, again, what he looked like in that position. I know, again, for Burnley, he operates on there 25 times, and a player that has been likened to maybe that could be his key position in the future. And Ange has spoken about the impact that he had in regards to being on the field in that position. He said, the issue we've got with Wilson is that he's just missed so much of the season, and you can see that he really lacks match sharpness, but he's an intelligent player. And I thought at times in the tight areas, he really found his way forward. And a couple of things didn't really fall his way. He was unlucky with his finish, which I thought was an outstanding finish, but it fell straight at Emi Martinez. I think with Wilson, at least, we've got him some significant minutes. With the way that we are in midfield area, he might be one that we really need to rely on Wednesday. So it's good for him to play there. What's your feeling, what you've seen so far, Marcus, with Odobert in a Tottenham shirt? Is he one that you've got an exciting future about? Is he one for now? Gut feeling for you, what you've seen from Wilson so far?
Honestly, not sure, Ricky. There have been moments when I thought, funny enough, right at the start of the season, before he got his injury, I'm thinking, ooh, this guy's getting me up off my seat. And then, unfortunately, he was sidelined for such a long time. He has flickered intermittently, I would say, since coming back in. It's an awful lot to ask a player of his relative lack of experience to suddenly stand up on Wednesday night in the European final and be a match winner. It wouldn't entirely surprise me. I definitely think he's got a future at the club. It's a similar situation with Tell. I mean, excuse me, I can't really tell just how good he is at the moment. There have been moments again when I'm thinking, this is a player. He's not a £50 million player at the moment, but these are typical Tottenham signings that are so hard to evaluate. They have their moments, but they can't necessarily be relied upon. They haven't got the experience. But if you forgive me for describing them as bargain basement signings, but they're not proven individuals, and they haven't proved themselves yet. So of course there's going to be a huge question mark on either of them if they start, if they come on. And I understand Russ's logic with regards to Son. He did look sharp tonight. I thought he looked pretty sharp when he came off the bench in his first game back against Crystal Palace at the weekend. And yes, he is most definitely a match winner. He has proven that time and time again. And okay, he's not the player that he was, but he most certainly can be on Wednesday. I just worry that, if you play him from the start, particularly if the game goes to extra time, and then he has to come off or because he simply can't last 120 minutes. And, potentially you want him to take one of the penalties as well. I think that's a risk. And I think it's going to be a cagey first half anyway, with two teams, both just desperate to prove that they're not worse than the opposition. So I just think it would make sense to have him up your sleeve and to, you can play Richarlison on the left. You can try Odobert, Tell, whatever. I just want to hold Sonny back because I want to see him score the winner and pick up that wonderful trophy on Wednesday night. And I think he's more likely to do that off the bench.
Yeah, this will be an ongoing debate in terms of what Spurs need to do with regards to Wednesday. And, I think we're in a situation at the moment where, as we saw from that team selection, Ange has really had, in mind Wednesday, as we've known for a long, long time. And the element of going into the game was at Villa, he simply was not prepared to risk any further players. And we've spoken about the point now where we're in a situation with Sarr now where we're in this anxious wait with regards to what this latest injury setback means for him. Again, I think it's important putting out there that there is light suggestions that, I know, Marcus, you also mentioned this on the Tottenham Way, I think, when you recorded earlier in the week, that I've also heard there's light suggestions that Lucas Bergvall is, I've heard, individually training behind the scenes, and there's a little bit of a glimmer of hope that he may feature against United on Wednesday. Whether he can start is another question. Ange actually said on the game itself that he thought the boys did really well up until when Villa scored. He said they were really disciplined. They were organised. They didn't really let him create too much clear openings. But again, we had our moments. And, once they scored, you could see we lost that little bit of belief. We were fatigued. And a lot of the guys haven't played. And we were just looking like as a side that the general tiredness really affected us. And the game did get away from us. And I think, Ange was actually questioned about the fact of leaving Van de Ven, Romero and Udogie out of the squad and whether he is concerned about it being 2 weeks between the last time they played and to the final. But Ange said, look, the key thing is they are going to be available. They are available. For us, there's no point bringing them here. They weren't going to play. They stayed at home. They did a really strong training session. And come Wednesday, knock on wood, they're available. And that is the most important thing. That's the primary thing. When those guys play, the back four with Vic in goal, our chances of success significantly improve. And we spoke about the fact that Spurs have only lost 15% of the games when they do have that back four and the goalkeeper there, in play. Russ, just on that point, I think we remember when we had the Champions League final, there was that big, I say hoo-ha made at the time by the fact that I think we had 3 weeks gap in between the end of the season to when we played the Champions League final. I mean, can we understand Ange's logic here on this point? The fact of the matter is, given our injury record this season, he didn't want to risk them. Can you understand that? Or would you have liked to have seen them given stun minutes ahead of Wednesday? Or can you understand where he's coming from?
Yeah, I can, because if we look at it, I think most members of our squad this season have been injured. I mean, that's a reality, and that's another discussion, really, on what's been disappointing. I mean, I do think, and Marcus said it, a few minutes ago at the start of the show, I mean, he couldn't win whatever he did tonight. And I think he took the safe option. And let's hope on Wednesday that it pays off. But, there's lots about Wednesday that we maybe can look forward to a little bit, because, it could be 4-4-2. I think we play. Marlon suggested that. I think it's not impossible. He might even start Richarlison, Son, Brennan Johnson, and obviously Solanke as attacking players. And I do have a feeling, incidentally, I hope I'm not going to kibosh it, that Brennan Johnson is going to score in this final. Now, that's not me saying we are going to win. I just got a feeling he's going to score. And but he needs to step up. We need to find a way in this final of giving the ball to Dominic Solanke in the areas that he wants it. Something that we really haven't done very much in the league at all.
Yeah.
And he's come in for a lot of criticism. I've been on that sort of train a few times. But, he's got to be given service.
Absolutely.
And he is dangerous. I'm not saying he's the greatest striker in the Premier League at all, but let's use him. Really, I don't want him running around and trying hard. I want him to be in the right places, and for his colleagues to know exactly where he's going to be, and that will give us a chance to frighten the life out of United. At the moment, they probably think they know, like most of the Premier League, how we're going to play. And we've got to find a way of surprising them, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, this is the key, isn't it? I mean, Miles coming over to you and just doubled down on that in his presser, saying, look, the reality is if something was to happen to those players that he's rested, he feels it wouldn't have been the smart course of action to take. I mean, we said, look, he's been damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. And I think going into this game there, I just thought the general consensus was that he would have got a lot more heat had he played one of the key starting 11 players and they got injured, rather than losing the game. Is that your engagement as well, Marlon, when it comes to getting that 11 right?
I think the Kulusevski injury last week he knew what he was going to be doing this week, because he just expected Kulu to get minutes under his belt, which Kulu needed. And especially after the Maddison injury, he needs to get Kulu up to speed. Bang, gone, out for the rest of the season. So he basically was saying, I can't lose any more players. And especially with Matty Cash around, you kind of went, you know what? I get where you're going with it. I think the problem that we've all got is that when he is playing this, if you want to say second string, it's just the performances they're just putting out. and you're kind of looking at going, I just wish they'd give a little bit more. But then when you look at the whole first team and at the way the team's been playing this year, it's just been the same. Everything's just been the same. It doesn't matter who plays in these positions. The same thing just generally happens. The only time we haven't seen it is in Europe. So, look, there was no way he could have played Van de Ven tonight, because if he plays Van de Ven and Van de Ven gets injured, then that's it. We're all going after him, I think, and that's where he's at the moment. You can't really risk Porro either, because Porro is probably going to be the most creative player we've got out there on Wednesday, which is like the most scary thought that is going to happen. But I do feel sorry for fans that went up there. However, I think a lot of them will be going on Wednesday, and as long as Spurs lift the trophy, I think everything else would be forgotten. But they've got to lift it. Otherwise, the last 3 or 4 weeks have just been absolutely pointless.
Yeah. Stuart here says, great pod, lads. Stu, thank you so much. What's the panel's view on rumours Porro could be used in the number 10 role in the final on Wednesday? Could it work? Marcus, do you have a view? I mean, maybe not as a number 10, but Pedro Porro playing a bit more in an advanced role than what we used to. I say that, but we've seen Pedro Porro so advanced for most of the season. Would it just know the difference, Marcus? I need to get Marcus off mute. So sorry. Marcus, are we going to get you off mute? Sorry, go for it. We've got you now.
I'm off mute. Yeah, I was going to say, has he not been playing that position all season? Listen, Porro bursting forward is a wonderful sight to behold. And when he gets his shots on target, it's magnificent. When they end up in Rosette, it's a little bit demoralising. Anything is possible. If Sarr's out, if we're now missing 4 of our midfielders, and by the way, I really hope that Bergvall rumour has got some legs to it, and that he is on the bench at least come Wednesday night, then Porro may have to operate in an unusual role, and who knows? And I also wouldn't be at all surprised to see Spurs play with 3 central defenders if we're up, midway through the second half. There's all sorts of little tactical tweaks, and we have blamed Ange in the past. It's all about Ange, Paul. There's only one way to go, and to be fair to him, he has tried different things. They've all failed effectively, but he's got options up his sleeve. This is a 90-minute, or hopefully a 90-minute match, maybe 120 minutes and some dreadful penalties as well. But needs must. And if Spurs are up, you might have to strengthen that defence. You might have to operate Porro in a different role. And we've got 1 or 2 options defensively to shuffle things around if we have to. So I wouldn't rule out anything. And I hope he's brave enough to make those changes if necessary, depending on how the game goes. I don't just want to see Ange standing there again in the technical area with his arms folded, not saying a word, not doing anything proactive. I got into a real row with a fellow fan actually on Sunday in the Palace game, because obviously we were losing the match, and I wanted Richarlison to come on. And, it was interesting afterwards that he said, I was never going to bring Richarlison on because after we played at Tamworth on an artificial pitch, we picked up some calf injuries. I wasn't going to risk Richie. He obviously hadn't told him that, because he kept staring at the bench, didn't he, for the last 15 or 20 minutes of the game, desperate to be called on. I thought that was a strange bit of man management. But even then, I thought if Richarlison had come on Sunday, muscled around a little bit, he needed some minutes, Palace had taken off some of their best players, we might have got back into that game. So whatever happens, Ange, be proactive on Wednesday. Engage, communicate, do whatever you have to do, tactically and otherwise, to make sure we beat Manchester United.
Who can I say, Man United did lose late on against Chelsea with a Mark Cucurella header. So we both go into the final on the back of Premier League defeats where, this game, it's honestly unbelievable, isn't it? I mean, I am going to close on the game. I just want to ask a couple of quick questions with regards to some of the players that featured there and kind of what we made of them. I mean, just actually coming on to you, Russ, and ask you about Kinski was, again, second successive start for him in the 11. He actually had a brilliant reaction, say, very early on from Watkins. He actually sent Odegaard away with a really great throw early in the second half. He said, well, again, late on from Watkins as well. A fairly decent performance, would you say, overall from Kinski? Russ, what did you make of it?
Without a doubt, Rick, without a doubt. That throw was fantastic. And it was just, the first touch that let Tell down or Odegaard. It was Odegaard, wasn't it? He made 2 brilliant saves. One from Rodgers that was really world class, and the other one that took actually a deflection off Ben Davis, and that was the Ollie Watkins chance. Do you know what I like about him? He's extremely agile. And I think he's a better gatherer of the football from corners and crosses than Vicario is, to my eyes. Now, I'm not saying for a moment Ange is going to start him in the final, but I think for next season, I suspect he's going to get better and better and better and challenge for the number 1 shirt. And I thought tonight he did well. He'd be disappointed he'd let 2 goals in. All goalkeepers love a clean sheet, don't they? But, the defending, as we know, wasn't very good, but he was very assured. And I like his confidence for such a young player.
Yeah, I mean, Marcus, just coming over to you about Kevin Danso. Early on, made a really vital interception to deny Watkins, and probably if you overall look at some of the performances on the game itself, probably comes out in, one of the better performers on the game. Is that how you saw Danso's performance for you?
Yeah, I was pleased to see him tonight like that, because I thought he really struggled actually against Crystal Palace at the weekend, and I've been impressed with him since he arrived at the club. Of course, he's another one that's had to deal with an injury problem, but I think he's a really useful addition to the squad. And I mentioned it a bit earlier, I wouldn't be at all surprised if we end the match on Wednesday with 3 central defenders, and he'll be one of them, and he could have a very important commanding role to play in the centre of that defence. By the way, just going back to Kinski, this whole season has had so many echoes to 1983-84 when we won the UEFA Cup. The manager left immediately afterwards, and we think that Postecoglou is going to do that here. Liverpool were the league champions that season. Liverpool were the league champions this season. Spurs had several key injury problems going into the second leg of that final. They were without, the likes of Clements, Hoddle, and Ardiles, amongst others. Yeah. And we know that Tony Parks, the reserve goalkeeper, was the star in the penalty shootout. I'm just waiting for news. Yeah, has Vicario picked up a bit of a knock? They'll be saying at the moment he's fine. Then we'll see pictures of him in his hospital bed tomorrow, and in will come Kinski to be the hero in the penalty shootout. I mean, anything could happen here, but he is. I agree with Russ. He's a good backup. He is agile. He looks pretty commanding. He gives me the heebie-jeebies sometimes with his bravado is perhaps the best way of describing it, but he's quite young. He's quite inexperienced. I do like him. I think we need Vicario's experience at the back though on Wednesday, please.
It's an interesting one. I mean, Miles, come over to you. I mean, this guy I'm going to bring on to now looked like it was a degree of the level we were hoping to see when we signed him, and that's Yves Bissouma. But unfortunately, in this game, you look at the 2 goals Spurs conceded and the manner of them. He gave away the ball for Villa's corner that they then scored on. And Konsa, I mean, given so much space to score, quite unbelievable the amount of space he was given in that 6-yard box. And then when you look at the fact that, Bissouma himself stepped away from Boubacar to see him score the second goal of the game. Pretty poor cameo, and you think he's going to end up probably starting on Wednesday, probably alongside Bentancur that came on for the final 15 minutes. Bentancur just kind of kept things neat and tidy, really, when coming onto the field. How good is that midfield partnership going to need to be to stop Man United from breaking through us, Miles?
I think I said it earlier. I think that those two, when they're on their game, are absolutely quite massive for us. And yes, Bentancur coming on today, you knew mentality-wise, he's not going to be on it. His mind is completely on Wednesday. He's probably thinking, why is Ange even bringing me on? I might get injured. That would be the mentality that would be going on in Bissouma's mind. So you're not surprised when he comes on and makes those mistakes where he hasn't got a leader next to him like a Bentancur, who's been there, done it. And you just have to go look at the Europa League games when they have been together. They have been good. They have been solid. I think a lot of people were giving Bissouma a lot of praise out in Bodo because they were very surprised of how assured he was. It was like seeing him how he was at Brighton and the reason why we signed him. So look, tonight was never going to be the night for Bentancur, and I'm not Bentancur, Bissouma, sorry. Never going to be the night for Bissouma because it's just when his mind is elsewhere and it's not concentrating in the environment he's in, he's always going to be poor. And that's been him all season. Whenever he's come into this team and whenever you expect him to stand up and be the leader in the league games, he's completely just fallen by the wayside. But I'm just going again. It seems to be that these players have a different mentality for the Europa League than they do the Premier League, and it just seems to be working. So I'm hoping they've just got one more game to do it, and then we'll assess it in the summer, as they say.
I know Marcus already gave his comments on Jed Spence. Russ, I just want to ask you quickly on Jed Spence because there was a period of the season where it felt he was Spurs' undroppable fullback, and it's come to that point now, as Marcus touched upon earlier, Adoggy's got back into the side, and
Yeah.
it just feels for Spence in general now that he knows no matter what he does, he just isn't going to be Ange's first player to turn to when it comes to looking at the fullbacks. I mean, I also look at his attitude, Spence. I don't mean this in a bad way, that I just wonder, if he also believes in himself enough that he's got to keep on working hard in these periods where, if there was an injury to a doggy or Porro, he's there. He's going to be in the team. Do you feel like his head has slightly dropped over the last couple of weeks? Because there's almost a feeling from him that he knows no matter what he does, he just isn't Ange's first choice fullback anymore, or ever was.
Yeah, I mean, I think he doesn't look quite the player he was. But, the whole point of a squad is that you're going to have people who are absolutely ready to go. That is what the squad of players is for in exactly those situations. And he's probably got to improve a bit. Doggy, obviously, is going to start ahead of him. There's no doubt about that. And he went off the boil, and now he's come back and played okay, a bit more like the old Destiny. But for about 2 or 3 months, Jed Spence was actually our best player. In fact, the game that I remember being really good was when we played Man United at home.
Yeah, it was superb.
About 3 months ago. Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, he was absolutely outstanding.
Yeah,
But he's dropped off a bit, but he's only a young player. It happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Tottenham need to get a squad of players that are all very good. And at the moment, we have, as we know, we haven't got.
Yeah.
We're not in that situation at the minute. And if we can win on Wednesday, we got much more chance of being in that position. Whereas if we don't win on Wednesday, it really is a gloomy future, I think, for a while that we're going to have to get used to. So we just got hope.
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Before I close on Wednesday, just Mikey Moore, Marcus, for you. Again, very, very highly rated young prospect. I think he's actually signed a new deal with an agency today, which you obviously see him, under new management to some degree. And I know there's talk maybe of the fact that there's been, in the most recent couple of weeks, Borussia Dortmund tracking him. There's some Premier League interest in him as well. Maybe dare I say a loan for next season. What did you make of Mikey overall in that game for you, Marcus? Do you look at a player there that maybe does need a loan, regular Premier League experience, Championship experience for you? What do you gauge?
Yes, possibly. He was so bright and inventive earlier in the season when he got his opportunity, wasn't it? Maddison, who was describing him as he made some ridiculous description, one of the greatest players in the world. Neymar, of course it was.
Neymar.
Yeah, and that was the kiss of death, wasn't it? But then he was ill. He had a issue off the pitch, and I've been a little frustrated. The thing is, we were told that this is the brightest prospect Tottenham have produced since Harry Kane, and then you get the Neymar comparison as well, and that's not going to do him any favors. And he's coming into a struggling team. When you're a young player, you need to be coming into a team that's functioning really to be able to help you bring out your best. So I think the stars have not aligned for him in the closing weeks of this season. So, yeah, I mean, I think it all depends on who the new manager is, what future that manager sees for Mikey Moore. But I want what's best for him, because we all, every football fan loves a player that is produced by their own club. So we all really want to see Mikey Moore succeed. If that means going out on loan for a season, I would certainly not be adverse to that. Look at Harry Kane. How many times did he go out on loan? And it did in the world of good. So
yeah,
let him be fit, let him get minutes. And if it's not going to be under the next Tottenham manager, then by all means go out on loan for a year or so and then come back and produce your very best form for your parent club.
Agreed. Look, let's close on Wednesday. We've all discussed the magnitude of how big the game is. Mars, where will the game be won and lost for you on Wednesday? Where do you see the key battles being, given that, we've got this now uncertain weight over Pat Matar, which for those that are joining the show now that aren't aware, obviously listeners on audio would have heard it, that Sarr did leave the pitch to some form of a back injury. And just said he's spoken to him. He doesn't think it's too bad. I mean, every time Ange just said he thinks it's a knock or it's not too bad, the player ends up being out 3 to 4 months. So you can't really take at face value what Ange says anymore when it comes to potential injuries. Where would a game be won and lost a few miles on Wednesday?
Well, one, our attack versus their defense, because if you look at it, it's probably our worst part and their worst part against each other. So we need to hopefully get Solanke, Johnson. I'm going to say Richarlison for now because I'm judging it on tonight's game. But we need to basically make sure that if we get any chances, anytime we can get it up there, to make sure we're putting it away, because I don't think we're going to get many. But what's going to be key is that battle between Bentancur, Fernandes, and Basuma, and that's Bruno Fernandes, because Bruno, and I think if Mason Mount's playing, because Mason Mount seems to have turned the corner in the last few weeks, if we can keep those two quiet, and I mean really quiet like we have done, like Bruno, if we can make sure Bruno doesn't get influence on that game, then that's where it's going to be won and lost, because Manchester United's attack is not great. It's not me saying it is not going to suddenly they're going to turn up on Wednesday and all that. And we've got very good defense. So it's going to be down to if Bruno and Mason Mount can be kept very quiet, because I saw bits of their game tonight and them two were the ones pulling the strings, and it's Ahmad as well, and make sure we can keep him quiet if he plays. As long as we can kind of keep it out and make sure that we can overrun Casemiro, then we can win it. There's no. I'm not sitting there and saying we can't win it. We are on paper. When you look at it, we are better than them. It's just that they just have big game players, and this is the time when the players that where they've let us down all season, apart from in the semi-final and the quarter-final, which they really did step up, they can step up again. They've just got one more time to do it, and I believe they can. I know tonight's game is going to put a lot of negative doubts in people's heads, but no, let's go into this game on Wednesday being as confident as possible. And look, I think Ange has only lost 3 finals in his career. 3 is the stat, and they were all in Japan. So don't worry, people. He's got this. He's got this.
I mean, I know he's won the last 2. Amram's lost the last 2. If you don't take into account where those have been located.
Look, and Onana, even though Onana ain't lost the final for Manchester United, he's lost the last 2 European finals as well. So come on, let's take the positives out of this.
We've got to manifest it. We're going to go to Russ. We're going to close on Marcus. Russ, I look at your face, and I know by looking at your face what this season has done to you, and I know you need this break away, this 3-month break we've got coming up. But what would it mean, Russ, for the club to win the Europa League for the season?
That'll be huge.
Be massive, wouldn't it? Be massive.
Yeah, massive. We've beaten them 3 times already this season. Whenever I've seen them play, they're not a sort of team where I go, blimey, I wouldn't want to play them now. They too, as a football club, are in trouble. I think it will literally come down to which team wants it the most on the night. And I think it's as simple as that. We're absolutely capable of beating them. Don't get rabbit in the headlights eyes. Play your football. Know you've beaten them 3 times. Know the quality players up front that we've got. Give them the ball. Defend tightly. And there is a good chance we can do it. And that is my prediction. And a quick thank you to all the Man City and Scousers for supporting us as well. Much appreciated.
about the only people that are supporting us this season, I got a bit, or in general. Russ, thank you so much. Marcus, I know you'll be giving us one final rallying speech on the Tottenham way to come.
Yeah.
Give us a mini one here. What does Spurs need to do on Wednesday night against Manchester United to win the Europa League and find themselves with Champions League football next season, despite us recording this show on the back of our 21st defeat of the Premier League season? Was it 24 in general? Even I can't quite believe what I'm saying on this season here. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I think 3 areas on Wednesday night, Ricky. Set pieces. We have got to be very solid when we're defending, because, Fernandes in particular is lethal. Be it from free kicks, corners, etc. And we can lose our concentration in those positions. Equally, when we have some set pieces, we've got to take advantage of those. We have got to be confident but cautious with our defending. I think that's been the big difference in Europe as opposed to the Premier League. The kamikaze passing out from the back with Vicario's poor distribution, putting Porro into trouble, whoever else it might be. Spurs can look an absolute mess, giving the ball away there. We haven't done that so much in the quarterfinals and semi-finals of the Europa League. So let's be confident but cautious when it comes to the defending, and don't give the ball away in other parts of the pitch. I like Bentancur, but he in particular is guilty of losing possession in key areas. We cannot do that. We cannot offer up Manchester United a gift, because as poor as they may be going forward, and particularly with their strikers, you know, had they had someone who could put the ball in the back of the net in that league game, which we won 1-0, they would have beaten us. So we cannot be giving them any gifts. And if we make sure all those areas work, those three key ingredients in the game, I do believe that we should beat Manchester United, and we will be Europa League champions, heading into the Champions League next season, having had a better year than Arsenal, Chelsea, and just about anybody else. The future will be golden. Give me another drink.
Yes.
Get another brownie.
Hallelujah.
We're going to close
Reverend
with
Marcus.
that. For more of those takes, please go and make sure you check out the Tottenham one with Marcus on there. Marcus, I think we both know it's going to be a very interesting summer, right? I mean, if we're going to be predicted and what's going to come, my God, with Tottenham, we don't know what's around the corner, right?
No
it's
idea.
going to be interesting. I want to say a massive thank you, Miles. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Russ, thank you so much. Russ,
Thanks for
more
having
Premier
me.
League game to go.
I know,
One more.
Brighton. Here we come.
Marcus, thank you, mate. We look forward to seeing you next season. Guys,
Cheers, Ricky.
over 5,500 of you check the show out. Thank you so much for all your support. Keep liking, keep subscribing. There you go. It's a short, sharp last word on Spurs. But look, it all goes on to Wednesday now. It is quite simply all or nothing. Will Ange Postecoglou win a trophy in his second season, like he always does? From me, from broadcast extraordinaire Russ Williams, from presenter Marcus, Buckland and the Tottenham way, and from the superb Marlon Spurs Kings. We've been the last one on Spurs. Keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.